Aloha kako. Welcome to the Bishop Museum. My name is Taylor Chang. I get to serve as Director of Public Programs here, and it's my honor to be able to welcome you to our great lawn on this awesome day. We're thrilled to be able to host this event in partnership with Hawai'i Walls Murals Festival. And before we begin, we just want to acknowledge that we are here in this place, the Bishop Museum, in Ka'iwi'ula, in the Akupua of Kapalama. And being here on the Great Lawn, converging together, we're in a place that holds millions and millions of stories and genealogies that brings together histories, culture, science, and art. And so it's very fitting that we're able to hold space for this conversation about multiverses and the creative process and contemporary storytelling. It's Bishop Museum's mission to essentially perpetuate these stories in a way that bridges the past, present, and the future with the mea kupuna that we have in the collection and here in this place. So I want to acknowledge that. And this really would not have been possible without the partnership of Jasper Wong and Amy Liu, the masterminds behind the Hawai'i Walls mural. Yes! They're like the Evelyn and Raymond Wang of Hawaii. They're like jumping through time and space to organize the hell out of this amazing festival. And we could not have done this without them. So I just want to, deeply mahalo you all 800 of you supposedly, who are coming here to join us in person for this event, and our guest speakers and our moderator for flying in and being here with us to have this conversation in Hawaii. And we know that a lot of time and energy goes into this type of work to be able to bring us all together. I really want to mahalo Toyota Hawai'i for being our presenting sponsor and for generously supporting this program. Thank you for this awesome card, like the Toyota DeLorean. And, thank you again to Jasper and Amy Liu. I'm going to invite Jasper to the stage to talk a little bit more about the festival that is happening this week. So please join me in a huge, massive hot dog hand round of applause for Jasper Wong. He embodies being everything, everywhere, all at once.
Thank you, Taylor. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be back here in Bishop Museum. We did our exhibition here back in 2021, and Bishop Museum is always in our heart. And even more so, we're so happy to be here in Kalihi. This is our first year doing it here, out in Kalihi and Palama area. Kalihi has always been really close to my heart because I grew up out here. I didn't live here, but my mom had a grocery store and a bakery here by Farrington, and I lived and pretty much spent my entire childhood in the back of that store. And so coming back here to give back to this community meant a lot. And I started teaching at Palama Settlement, which is a community center that really caters to a lot of the underprivileged kids in this underserved area with the public housing and the low-income housing in that area. And I started teaching art classes there, and now we're painting over 30 murals in that neighborhood. And we're also painting murals, thank you. And we're also painting murals not only in there, but we're also painting 4 at Farrington High School. We're painting 6 here at Bishop Museum, and which is one you can see happening right behind me on the Science Adventure Center. And we're also doing 9 at Kalihi-Kai Elementary, and about how many are in Dillingham Plaza? Like 12. And so we're doing we're doing a lot of murals all over Kalihi this year. When I was first approached to do murals, they asked me to do 1 because they felt that it would bring smiles and color to the kids in that neighborhood. And we thought, why just do 1? Let's do like 80. And so that's what we're doing now. And it's really thanks to all the artists that flew out here to give their time and energy, and everyone here for supporting us, and the museums and the sponsors and Toyota, and everyone that sort of believed in us and believed that art can really make a positive impact on communities and that art can really make a difference. So thanks to everyone that's been supportive of this project and of this festival that we've been doing for the past 12 years and in over 25 cities. And also I want to bring up Jeff Hamada, who I've known forever. And He runs an art magazine and blog called Boom, but he doesn't know how to spell it right. And he's today going to be moderating this talk with the Daniels and with Kirsten Lepore. And he's really the connection that sort of brought them all together to here to Hawaii to now. So, Jeff.
Hello, everyone. Who here knows the work of Kirsten Lepore and the Daniels? One of the coolest things that's ever happened to be just a few minutes ago. I was chilling up here. A very nice gentleman came up to me. They told me, I'm a huge fan of your work. And they said all these nice things about me. And it took me a minute to realize he thought I was Daniel Kwan. And so for a moment, I felt what it was like to be one of the Daniels. That was really cool. I'm actually, this is on a serious note, I've been having serious migraines, and my wife's been making sure I don't have anything heavy around my neck. I've been doing all these exercises. And of course, today I get like a million lays put around my neck, so I already feel like, hopefully I don't have a migraine. Anyways, I'm gonna have actually each one of them come up and do a sort of a little self-intro, and they're gonna share either things that inspired them, some of their own work perhaps. And I kind of told them the reason why I wanted to have them do it was years ago, I saw a movie called Brazil. They didn't direct Brazil, but there's a moment at the very beginning of Brazil, this will ruin the beginning of the movie, but there's an explosion. There's a guy walks by this window, and the window explodes. And I was like, oh my God, it looked like the guy like disintegrated. And I was like, how did they do that? So I like rewound it, and I frame by frame went through it. And I realized that there's a real guy, and at a certain point, they like, Terry Gilliam or whoever he hired, hand-painted frames of a person exploding as the explosion happened through the glass. And it blew my mind, and I think it sparked something in me that made me want to create stuff. And I had that same experience when I saw their work. The earliest things that all three of them were making, they were doing such cool, innovative stuff. Kirsten's like stop motion's having like a sand person walking underwater. I was just like, how are these things being done? And so I'm as excited as you are to have them. So first up, we'll have Daniel Kwan. So can you please give a big round of applause?
Hi, guys. Oh, my God. Thank you so much for coming out. Can you see anything on the screen? No. Okay. I wasn't sure. Oh, hey. Okay. So this is going to be an experiment. If you can see things, then I will do the presentation as intended. But if you can't see things, then I'll just try to... Oh. I need a password. So as he's doing the password, hey, look, it's my roadie. He's my personal assistant. When Jeff first asked us to do this, he really wanted us to do personal introductions, just because we always talk together, and we've been doing this for so long. We've been talking so much about our movie. He wanted a more unconventional way to talk about our creative inspirations and where we came from. So I just thought it'd be fun to take a... It's not up. Okay. Ah. Oh, wait. Oh, okay, there we go. I see it.
Unplug, replug. Here it goes. It's doing the blinky thing now. How's that feel?
There we go. Hey. Oh, that's nice and bright. So this is just like, has almost nothing to do with film, and more just about like a funny through line I came up with once Jeff was like, hey, what kind of stuff were you into as a kid? What kind of influenced you? And The through line, this one through line, there are many through lines in my life. This one through line is my attraction to chaos and infinite possibilities and just the noise around me growing up. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is Richard Scarry. If you guys remember Richard Scarry's Busy World, everything is labeled, everyone has a place in the town, but it's also really chaotic and beautiful. And as a kid, I was really obsessed with labels and taxonomy and putting things in boxes. And this is a page from a book that I love where he just lists a bunch of little things like hooks and pedals and mosquitoes and stuff like that. I love cross sections. Again, the world is built to remove chaos from our view with drawers and closets and walls, but a cross section, you get to see all the chaos and the mess. And as a kid, this was my favorite. So this was something that led me to Where's Waldo, which is like the evolved version of Busy World, and the Little Miss and Mr. series, which if people aren't familiar, it's just a bunch of characters, each with a different personality type, who go down weird journeys, like Mr. Nosy, Mr. Perfect. And I just wanted to recreate this. And so as a kid, I found this book called Make a World by Ed Emberley, which literally taught you how to draw everything. And so that's what I did. I draw worlds upon worlds, and I was a terrible artist. And so I really got drawn to, Kirby Superstar, Kirby. And you can notice Kirby not only looks like Mr. Happy and Mr. Clumsy, but he's also really easy to draw. So someone like me who's terrible at drawing, it was perfect. And so I would draw a lot of Kirbys. That's literally all I would draw. But one of the reasons why I loved it so much is because the Kirby could do anything. It starts from one point, and suddenly you can have all these infinite possibilities in the video game. You could swallow something and become a chef. You could become a balloon. You could become an ice guy. You could blow out fire. And I was just blown away by the possibilities of this one little pink guy. And so you draw those kind of things. Around the same time, Mega Man X also came out. Same thing. You beat a boss. You steal their power. This is like this idea of being able to become anything from one source is so amazing. And then, of course, I would draw them together. Kirby swallowing Mega Man, infinite possibilities on top of infinite possibilities. And then Super Smash Bros., the latest one, recently actually made it possible. So my childhood dream came true. So I'd draw forts, much like the Richard Scarry. I'd draw cross-sections with Mega Man and Kirby. This is ants. That's not actually either of those things. Of course, Pokemon is the next thing. So much taxonomy. You have all these different labels. This is kind of like a rushed overview just with a through line. I'm sorry if I'm going fast. And within Pokemon, there's even a Pokemon that can become anything as well. This was another obsession of mine. I love that you can just draw him 2 eyes in a line, and then suddenly he can become any Pokemon, and that's their face. I was raised really religious, and of course, this is the stuff that I was really drawn to, just the chaos and the infinite details that these Renaissance painters would do. I think of staring at something so complicated that you can't process as the closest thing we have to looking at God. It feels like you're staring at infinity, and it was both really beautiful and very existential. And so this was another big part of my upbringing. I don't want to talk about movies too much, but the movies I loved were things like Magnolia, where there was too many characters, too many scenes, too much. Fight Club, Adaptation, Amelie, all these kinds of films. The scene from Paprika, where there's this parade that is just the most overwhelming, intricate, terrifying nightmare of a sequence. I remember the first time I saw it, I just was blown away by it. Which leads me to Alex Prager. As an adult, I fell in love with this photography. It's basically Richard Scarry's Busy World, but with adults and humans. And again, it has all the same kind of chaos and playfulness of that kind of stuff. And then finally, this painter, Akira Manabu, who was a big inspiration for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I would stare at this wave for inspiration, because I wanted to capture this feeling. Once you zoom into the wave, there are worlds within worlds within worlds. And this feels like just like a mature adult version of the stuff I grew up loving. And so when you look at our work, for those of you who aren't familiar, we did a lot of music videos and commercials, and a lot of it is just chaos and destruction and people dying, but it's all very fun. It's very strange. A lot of tableaus, slow motion things happening. This is a Tenacious D video that we did that kind of, I don't even know if you can really see it, but that has like a Renaissance vibe to it. And then, of course, we also, we did a Levi commercial that had cross sections. All of this stuff just comes from my childhood, and it's very funny to see such a direct line between those things, because I never even made those connections until Jeff asked me, like, this week. So this is all actually a fun discovery for myself. And then, of course, Swiss Army Man, when you really think about it, it's a man with a bunch of different powers. It's literally about a multi-purpose man who's able to help him survive and do anything, including save his life. And of course, that just goes back to this very simple concept of, from one point, how can you do so many different, how many possibilities can get unlocked from one point? And the same thing can be said about Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's all, again, it just feels like a repeating thing that's been happening throughout my life. Even this still image of Evelyn in her, I don't even know if you guys can see this. Okay. In her really cluttered apartment, this is me trying to put my worldview and kind of how I see the world all in one image. And it's also how my desk looks at home. And so that's my through line. This is how I'm looking back at my life and influences that I had. And it's funny because I'm kind of going full circle, because I just released 2 children's books last year, and one of them has a car crash in a cross section, and the other one is a cross section of the house. And it's very funny to see how basically I'm starting back, or ended up where I started. So yeah, that is my introduction and my through line. Thank you guys so much. We're going to bring in the next person.
Please give a big round of applause to our next guest, Kirsten Lepore.
Hello. Oh, can you guys hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. Hi, I'm Kirsten. I'm married to that Daniel that was just up here. And I thought, I saw him working on his presentation over my shoulder, and I thought, I'm going to do the opposite and just show how much opposites attract. And just show you, can we pull mine up? Yeah, perfect. This is just a couple clips, but kind of my whole vibe is actually, I want to talk about simplicity and keeping things minimal. Although maybe this clip isn't the best because it's kind of full on and showing you everything. But I also wanted to talk about character, because I feel like Jeff kind of gave us this prompt, and it really got our wheels turning. It's ooh, how do we, what do we really do? What makes our work, really specifically ours? And I feel like for me, it's my focus on characters and weird characters. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is rewinding back to 1995. This is me as an 11-year-old making a weird monster puppet and having my sister dance around. But starting even earlier, I was really influenced, and honestly still am, by children's books, like the work of Leo Leone. You can see even in the design of this character, it feels like something I would possibly even design today. It's just very beautiful, simple, focus on textures, a googly eye. There we go. That's the major through line with all of this. Just a focus on it's just ripped paper. It's literally just illustrated with a little bit of paper there, a simple mouse. Another inspiration in my life are original troll dolls. Who had original troll dolls? You guys know? Yeah. They made them too cute now. I liked them when they were ugly, because they would never make that today. And I especially love the butts. They don't do this today. These were the 80s troll dolls. These were the good troll dolls. Very, very inspiring to my work and my films. Gumby, huge inspiration. Yeah. The great thing about Gumby is he is such a simple character. They didn't overcomplicate it. They didn't even feel the need to have him do walk cycles when he was animated. He literally just skates around on one foot, He didn't need to walk. Why overcomplicate it? Beaker, who's incredible from the Muppets. He's so good and so funny because all he does is flap his mouth up and down, and it makes it even funnier than him having all this articulation. These are these things called face bank that I discovered when I was on a trip in Japan. I bought one. They're still so inspiring to me. So simple, really weird design, simple yet creepy. This is kind of the theme. These are some animals that really inspire me. I don't know if you can see them. There's some very cute, weird alpacas. Yeah, very hard to see. But this bird, I think, is called a patu. It's amazing. This could be straight up Henson puppet. Some incredible Halloween costumes that are very creepy. Again, don't know if you can see the dark images. Here's some more. And another thing I've sort of come to realize in self-analyzing my own work is thinking about the difference between soft world building and hard world building. Soft world building being more, you create this whole world and these characters, but you don't over-explain it, you don't overcomplicate it. There's mystery left there. You don't totally understand the whole world, but yet you're completely taken by it and on the ride. And I think that I try to do that in my own work, because that when you don't ascribe such specific characteristics or over-explain things, I think it makes things more relatable. Anyone can see themselves in that character and relate to that character. And I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'm just going to scroll through and talk over. I don't know how loud it's going to be.
Just about
Here, maybe I can't turn it down. Oh, I can turn it down myself. Okay. This is just a clip from Alison Skolnick's short film Mound, and it's just these bizarre clay characters. I feel like each one could have its own film. This is a clip from a film called Half Wet by Sophie Coco Gate. Highly recommend watching the whole thing. Very strange. The character design is very unique, but not overly complicated. This is a clip from Julia Pott's film Belly. Yeah, the characters are just, there's just such a sense of mystery where, like, even just when you see them, you're like, what is this guy about? Like, he's sort of, there's like a sad melancholy. It just, like, it begs you to lean in. You want to know more about it. This is a clip from a film called Wednesday with Godard by Nicholas Menard, which is incredible. And these are all just things that are also just really visually inspiring to me. I find them to be super unique and beautiful, and these artists are really pioneering new ground. This is a clip from a film called Little Boat, and it's just, it doesn't even need to be a human character. This whole film just follows a boat as it goes on a journey through different scenes and places, and eventually sort of gets beat up by the wind and by people and wars, and in the end gets patched back together. And it's just like a beautiful analogy for life, but it's just a boat, and it makes me cry. It's like more beautiful than a human character. It's a clip from David O'Reilly's Octocat, because I also just love, ridiculous, silly, humorous characters that don't have to be well drawn. Yeah. But the thing that I appreciate most about animation and like to remind myself when I'm making work and designing, in addition to just not overcomplicating things, only bringing the details that you absolutely essentially need to tell the story. Besides that, I remind myself that animation really isn't bound by any laws of nature or gender or physics, and that's what excites me about it. You really can do anything, and I do try to steer away from like straight human characters, because again, like, you can only really do that in animation. So for those of you that are interested in animation, or part of this can be even done in live action, just I want you to feel free. I feel the Hawaii breeze blowing on me right now, and I'm like, oh, I feel so free. You can make anything you want. So yeah, hopefully this is giving you a little bit of that beautiful free wind that I feel right now. I feel like that represents my work right now. So thank you, and Daniel Scheinert is up next. I don't know which one is...
Test. Hello. Can you hear me in the back? Thank you guys for coming. Oh my gosh, there's so many of you. This is beautiful. I interpreted the assignment differently, or, just did it my way. So, I thought I'd just pick one thing to show you. I actually have two. But this is something from my past. I haven't rewatched this in years, and we're gonna rewatch it together. I can't remember, I don't know if it aged it well. This is like performance art. I was an intern at a TV show called Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job. Woo! So we're gonna watch one of their sketches real quick. It's about 1 minute long, and I could only find it in standard definition. Let's see.
Hello, I'm Diarrhea Jones, and the inventor of D-pants. D-pants are protective pants you wear under your trousers to capture and contain your uncontrollable diarrhea. Just squirt away right into the plastic. The diarrhea almost never runs away through the tight elastic around the ankles. And my D-pants are discreet. As a matter of fact, I've been filling them up right in front of you. And when they're filled up to the brim, you just hose them off in your backyard. Hello, Jenny. Ready for a new day. Damn it, I forgot to tell you. My D-pants are not made for solid loafs. It's too much for the plastic. It'll rip a hole right through the back. So please, keep it liquid. This is Diarrhea Jones reminding you to squirt on the go and poo in your pants with D-pants.
Yeah, it kind of holds up. So first off, I just want to say, what a beautiful museum. Thank you for having me. I was an unpaid intern, and those are my legs. Yeah. And I was trying to decide how much of this story I would tell you. I volunteered because they were like, we need to pour the fake diarrhea on somebody, and these guys inspired me. They're so like avant-garde comedians where like the joke is how unfunny it is sometimes, and their show was one of the only comedy shows where like the editors made the jokes, you know, like there wasn't like a strict script and you could kind of feel it. They're making jokes but not with like just pen and paper. So I went and got this internship, volunteered to do this, and everybody from the entire staff came to watch them pour fake poo on the intern, and I was kind of excited to be the center of attention. I kind of like it sometimes, and I walked out. They put me in a dance belt, which is like a skin tone ballet underwear that is just like a man thong. So like it just goes, you're naked up the back. So I walked out like this, and then like everybody's laughing at the intern, and then I turned around and everyone went totally silent and stopped laughing, and then the costumer like took me behind the wall and was just like, adjust yourself, and then she disappeared, and I had showed one of my balls to my comedy heroes and the entire staff that I wanted to work for, and I was so embarrassed I didn't tell anyone about it for years, and now I'm just telling you all. Which is another theme of mine, is that I really love using art as therapy, or talks as therapy, and I was genuinely scared to tell you that story. But yeah, that's my thing, D-pants. But now I have a part two, because when they invited us here to give this talk, sometimes I know I said I like being the center of attention, but sometimes I get self-conscious being up on stage. Like I don't necessarily enjoy how much directors get the credit, and like us being kind of like whisked away all year, and us being the face of the movie, like always made me feel weird, because I really fell in love with filmmaking because it's like a team art form. I really love the community that comes from it and the collaborators I meet. And so similarly, when they invited us to come, I was like, can we do a workshop or something? And this morning, they let us go and work with kids at an elementary school near here. And we made some very, very weird horror films with children. And it was really the highlight, for me. Like, I just love making movies with people more than I even like showing them. We didn't have time to edit those horror films, but some of the folks from the art festival quickly whipped up a 1-minute clip for you guys to see us working with the kids this morning, and then we'll start our talk.
And filming, and action!
It's frozen. Okay, try again.
And filming. And action!
Today we're doing a workshop at Kahikai Elementary with the Daniels, the directors of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Kirsten Lepore, who's an animation director that's done work for Adventure Time, for did I Am Groot, animation director for Marcel the Shell. And they're here giving back to this community and teaching kids. Like for some people, like what they're doing now is like a dream, and these kids are getting this experience. I don't think some of these kids even know who they are actually. So, but they're having a lot of fun, a lot of laughing, a lot of screaming. It's good.
And I really appreciate them putting that together because it really is like makes me happy doing that kind of stuff. And they were very funny kids, and I'm gonna steal their ideas. Cool. So I guess we're gonna bring up some chairs and bring up my friends and talk.
Can I get one more round of applause for these talented guests here? I just wrote some notes on I'm not checking my text messages. I'm just gonna periodically look down at my notes here. One of my questions for all of you, some of these will be specific to some of you, some of them will be to everyone. This is an everyone question. When you work for someone else, and you start off as, say, a junior designer, you slowly become a senior designer, maybe an art director, creative. You work your way up, and you slowly, over time, kind of get pushed away from creative stuff. So I'm just wondering, because I followed your work from when you were all working by yourselves, without huge teams, what's that like for you now, having to manage lots of people, and how do you keep it fun and not lose the chance to do all the stuff you wanted to do in the first place?
I think it is interesting. I've just come to realize, like, really in the last few years, and also by watching them direct, that I didn't realize that, like, when you sign up for the job as director, I think initially you think, like, oh, I'm just going to be the one making creative decisions. Like, I'm in charge of this project. It's about the project. But I've really come to realize that half, or maybe even more than half of directing, maybe 75%, is just, like, kind of managing people, but also kind of being... like, not even like team captain, but like you're sort of like everyone's cheerleader. Like you really need to keep everybody happy and motivated and make sure that everyone feels appreciated and taken care of on the crew. And I think that's such an important and overlooked thing, maybe in the past with like, all the old dudes that like abuse their crew or whatever. But I feel like nowadays, more and more people appreciate that part of the job and realize how important that is to keeping the morale going and for creating like really wonderful work. Like when everyone's happy doing their job, then things run better and everyone's happier. Yeah.
But do you miss animating?
Oh, I mean...
You don't really animate anymore.
Yeah, like she used to make her movies all by herself in the garage.
Yeah.
And then like on Marcel, how many different animation setups were going?
Yeah, like 10 stages going at once. Yeah, that you're like running around to. Sometimes I miss like making stuff out of clay and like fabricating, which I'm sure I will do again, but I do feel like as I get older, I don't have the energy or the stamina to actually be like standing up 8 hours a day and doing the actual animation, which is like really grueling physical labor. So I kind of enjoy the more social.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's a lot of. It's very social. Like it's more social. Like you have to have the social energy. I think then it switches over to that where you're like most animators are just conditioned to like okay we're alone and we're just like working in a hole and we don't come out and see the light. But yeah, you sort of have to like learn and condition yourself to do the opposite and actually kind of be more extroverted and socialize with people and manage people and talk to people and like I remember there's like a definitive moment on Marcel where I had the the first AD be like, hey, one of our animators is like really kind of having a meltdown. Like, you need to go be the person to talk to them and like talk them off the ledge. And it made me really nervous. And I was like, oh, how do I say the right thing? Like, how do I? But you know, we talked it out, and you know, just sort of person to person, and it was actually really nice. You know, you sort of have to play therapist a lot of the time.
I feel like our generation is one of the first generations of filmmakers who were truly able to do from like start to finish entire short films by ourselves with the technology and the tools that were available. You know, right when we were about to graduate college, the 5D Mark II had come out, which was the first you know, readily available prosumer camera with an interchangeable lens that was less than like $10,000. So like, you know, it was like maybe $1,000 at the time, which was still a lot of money for a college student. But like that camera was available, Vimeo and YouTube were available, all the the Adobe suite was available, and so me and Scheinert actually started off doing everything ourselves, right? That's what you're referring to, and we had the benefit of every single time we hired a new person, we knew exactly what that person was doing and where they fit into our process. And so over the course of the past 13 years, we've been slowly building up, and every now and then it hit a point where, to get to your question, we would suddenly feel like we were no longer filmmakers, or certain parts of the process it felt like we weren't doing what we were best at, which was just getting our hands dirty and doing it. Visual effects is probably the best example of that. When we did our first feature film, we had to work with a proper studio, like VFX studio, and we were completely cut out of the creative process, and it was incredibly frustrating. And so with Everything Everywhere All at Once, we decided, okay, this time let's try to find a way to get back to our roots, but at a bigger scale. And I think one of the things that, you know, any artist can take away from that is the way we can examine our process and versus the standard process within the industry, and see how maybe we can shift that in a way that is both beneficial to ourselves, but then also maybe can guide other people. Hey, what's up? So I think whenever we feel that struggle with no longer feeling like we're creative, because we're, you know, it is our film, we try to find ways to bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think about like sometimes when people think of art as like a hierarchy, you're supposed to get a bigger job and that's better, and then like I see some of my friends get promotions and it makes them sad because they get further and further from the part of the process that they love, and that's such an important thing to kind of reflect on about yourself, and to constantly try to figure out, you know, like some people, maybe keeping it as a hobby actually makes you make better work and be happier than the job version of it. And for us, I think there were times where we got demoralized as we would have a big break, and I would be like, I hated that. Like, I didn't like the big crew, you know, on a big job doing a big commercial, and I was like, maybe I don't know, I gotta rethink this. This isn't why I want to make movies. And so we chase projects very selfishly, and we wrote Everything Everywhere knowing like I'm gonna get to break some stuff, and like we're gonna do the visual effects the way we want, you know, to try to chase that you know, that thing that is what makes us like making movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and to clarify, it's the way you want with the visual effects is like having 6 people do the whole thing.
Yeah, well, one of whom
7
was
people.
her. Yeah,
I don't count. I did like 2 shots.
No, but she did like some of the best shots. Same with Swiss Army Man. She ended up doing like 25 of the hard shots that, you know, we took them away from the company.
Kirsten's definitely the best visual effects artist up here right now.
Yeah, if you've seen our movie Interesting Ball, in it I get sucked up Dan's butt, and
I was the perfect person for that job.
And she did all the shots of me going up the butt. And
Yeah.
they were very hard shots, and she like carefully did it.
But I was the only one willing to
Incredible
like
work.
watch his butt all day, like pixel by pixel, and like
Yeah.
rotoscope it.
She learned it.
I actually wanted to ask you guys about butt stuff, because I feel butt stuff was actually, I wrote it in capitals on my phone. I wanted to make sure I asked about butt stuff. One of the first things I saw of Kirsten's was booty clap, and it was a girl booty, like shaking her booty, claymation or stop motion, and
It's incredible.
butts are a recurring theme in your work. I feel with High Stranger, Interesting Ball,
D-pants.
yeah, Everything Everywhere, and we don't have to talk specifically about butts, but maybe what have you learned about what people out here want to see. Like, how do you capture their interest? What have you learned over the course of all these things you've made? What do people want to see and share?
I feel like in all of our defense, we don't just do butts. We do mouths, we
Farting.
do farts, we do dicks, we
Humping,
do
yeah.
nose stuff. It's like literally
Diverse, yeah.
every orifice of the body. But I think it's actually a reflection of the audience, the fact that, and the reflection of on you, that you are only pointing out the butt stuff. So it's actually that's on society. That's not on us.
we're a mirror
Exactly.
to society.
I regret asking this question though.
What's the deal with butts too? Why the hang up?
But everybody can relate to butts, though. I have to say, like, this was confirmed.
Everyone has one.
Yeah, everyone has one. But also, this was
I'm sure some
confirmed
people
this
don't.
morning when Jasper showed his daughter and a bunch of other kids, like 10 and 11-year-olds, Hi Stranger, is like, the butt is fascinating. Like, from the we have a 4-year-old, like,
Right.
his two favorite things are like poop and sirens. It's like he just is obsessed with butt. I think most people have a fascination with their own butt, like their whole life.
Do you know the total, maybe just YouTube numbers on Hey Stranger or just Hi Stranger on YouTube? Do you know how many people
Have watched it?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's something about that little weird naked guy's butt, like, mesmerized everyone, and they wanted to share it with everyone they knew.
On YouTube, it might be like 5 or 6 million, maybe. But actually, the bigger viewership was back when Facebook video was a thing, because then it turned into a meme there. So there was maybe 200 million or something.
And I think, turned down for what is over 1 billion views on just YouTube. So I don't know. At what point did you?
That one did have a scene where we puppeteered the butt cheeks on our friend Sunitha, but the rig looked bad. It did, we actually had to cut out some butt stuff. But she does sit on his face, yeah.
Were there, now that you're doing bigger and bigger projects, did someone come in and say, I want less butt things in this project, or? How much do they rein you in, and how much of that is just we're doing what we want?
Remember when DJ Snake tried to make you take out all the penis stuff?
Yeah, he wanted us to take the boners out.
It was that's the whole video. That's the whole thing.
It's always a conversation on every project of and honestly we do talk about all our jokes a lot and how it's gonna land and are we making anybody feel more ashamed and really I think we're attracted to making fun of the taboo, not making fun of the character, and so even there are a lot of butt plugs in our movie that later won awards, and we talked about it is this I hope this is sex positive and not mean-spirited. And
yeah, I think there's something about being at a museum right now that's making me think of the strange, Americans are prudes, right? This is what this is who we are. It's a big.
There were a lot of beautiful naked sculptures in there. I wandered through earlier today. It was beautiful.
But there's this I don't know. Things are obviously the world is getting more polarized and things are getting kind of funny. And there's that teacher who got fired for showing the Michelangelo's David in a public school, which is pretty. Horrifying to think about, the fact that the human body has become this incredibly terrifying thing to certain parts of the population, and a lot of our work is just a really stupid celebration of the body in the strangest, and some of it tips into body horror a little bit, but it's still kind of done in a fun way. And
I think it's just us unpacking that we grew up in that same culture.
Yeah, exactly. I grew up in a very conservative household, and I had a lot of body shame growing up. And it's a lot to unpack. And you come from the South, yeah.
Whereas Kirsten's parents were just so encouraging from some. You always talk about you were just drawing naked people from such a young age, right?
Oh, yeah, it's the most sex positive household, and it was nothing was off limits, nothing was taboo.
Look at her now.
But do you feel
okay?
Now that the three of you have such a large platform, do you feel you have to use it for some good, or do you feel this not pressure, but an obligation or a duty to then use this platform to still be able to do fun and funny things, but then also do other things with the work?
Yeah, almost immediately I felt this incredible shame about again, there was no words for this back then. When we were started, it was like 2010, and no one had the words for the algorithm or optimizing for views or clicks. It was just this inherent feeling that like, oh, how do I make a video go viral? And we were kind of at the forefront of this moment where everyone was saying, let's see how many views we can get at all costs. What can we do? How can we shock people to the point of forcing as many people to watch our stuff? You saw a lot of bad stuff come from that. And we started to chase that. And almost immediately we both looked at each other and was like, what are we doing? This is actually really terrifying. The
I
fact
think
that
Dan Kwan saved me from becoming a horrible person.
Yeah.
I would have chased the algorithm straight into the alt-right, you know? I was been like, whatever gets the clicks. And then he was like, we have to stop. What are we doing?
Well,
You know?
it was more just like, even personally, I feel like, am I wasting my time? Because even YouTube videos take a lot of work and effort, right? Am I wasting all of my time just to put out something that I'm not proud of or that I didn't learn anything about myself? And so we started doing this weird thing, and it started out as a weird experiment where we would try to combine both things. How can we get the most viral content and the most personal stories into the same package, and what would come of it, and how would that feel? And I think that's a big part of our voice now. I say we collaborated with the algorithm. We weren't pulled by the algorithm. We weren't controlled by the algorithm. We collaborated with it. And Everything Everywhere All at Once is sort of like the pinnacle of that. It was a movie that no one wanted to watch and no one even had heard of. And but we had created in a way that had so much heart and so much viral potential at the same time that everyone needed to talk about it. And so the reason why we feel proud of that film and the why we don't feel icky trying to catch eyes is we really do believe that the messages that film contains are important to us and important to our growth and our healing, and hopefully obviously we've met a lot of people who felt the same way, and we're so thankful for that experience. But I feel like this movie has only kind of reinvigorated that need to take this opportunity and really put important stuff out there, because if we're not doing it, no one else is. The vacuum gets filled by all the other people, all the other corporate incentives, all the other the things that can really do more bad than good, I guess.
Kirsten, you have anything you want to add to that? I don't know if you got a chance to.
No, Dan talked in it.
Okay, yeah.
He said it all.
I'm wondering now that things have changed so much in terms of, the level that you're working at, do you all three still feel like what you're doing is what you were, or do you feel like what you're doing now is what you were born to do? Is this the thing?
I don't know, if I've gone so far down this road, it would be weird to turn back now. But yeah, no, I do think so. I feel like, you work so many years and you do kind of like find your voice, or, you're always working on it, things are still always growing and changing. But yeah, it feels right for me. I think there was like a moment 5-ish or so years ago where I was like, ooh, I really want to do live action, I really want to like pivot and like try that. And I kind of don't anymore. I think part of that is also just seeing them do it, and not just have success, but like also see how much it takes out of them. It's like the things that I don't like about my productions, which are always the things where you're like really on the spot and you get an hour to do it, and that's all of live action shooting. And I think that would just stress me out too much. I think I've become very comfortable in this place of like, okay, I know how to make a plan a year out, 2 years out, and like stick to that plan, and that's kind of what you have to do with animation, and I'm comfortable doing that.
I feel like one of the things I like about movies is that we constantly pivot our interests to the project, So like when you say like, is this the thing you're put on earth? Like my first impulse was like, no, but then like each project we can kind of just adjust. Like what are our passions? What interests us? Which part of this process am I gonna put myself into? Because doing the same thing for decades is not my goal in life. But so far it doesn't. Yeah, it feels like we get to kind of vary it up.
You get to like tell different. I guess the big thing is that you just get to tell different types of stories depending on what you feel is most important and has the most need in that moment, you know? And that's also the most stressful part, at least for me right now, and I know probably for you right now. It's like you feel so much happening in the world, and you feel the need to make something as quickly as possible to like talk about that thing or you know or get some kind of message out, you know. Yeah, and I feel like I think that's why it feels good, I guess, to be a filmmaker, you know? It's like you sort of have a little bit of that power to show people a story and catch their attention for a brief period of time.
Yeah, Daniel and Kirsten are going to roll their eyes because I talk about this too much, but I do think the one thing that...
So you turn away.
Yeah. So the one thing that I would say about... I like how slidey these chairs are. Your question of whether or not this is what we were put on Earth to do, you know, it's such a big question, and some way that I've been able to pivot it in my head is like, does this fulfill me, right? And I think a lot of people out there, like artists and beyond, everyone is thinking about what it means to be fulfilled in a post-pandemic world, and the thing I use as a guiding principle for that is just trying to find the intersection between these four things, like, what do you have to offer? What do you love to do, or what do you want to do selfishly? What does the world need? And then what will get you paid, you know, because you got to survive. And I think part of the is this what you were put on Earth to do question is in that what does the world need box, and I think that's our circle, and I think that's the circle that is the most desperately needed to be filled by everyone sitting here, everyone, you know, in the world, and it's the one that has the least incentives within our world and our system. And so finding a way to do all those things, what you love, what you have to offer, what you can get paid for, and what you can offer back to the world, finding something that does all those things is so rare, but I think it is like the work of every human being is to find that bullseye. And I feel like I found that, and I feel so grateful for that. This movie is the first time I felt like, boom, we hit something. We hit all those things, and I feel so fulfilled in this moment. And it sounds selfish to be chasing fulfillment, but really, the only way you will ever be fulfilled is if you give back and if you will become part of the community again. And so I think that's my answer to that question is like, I don't think I was put on this earth to do this, but I feel fulfilled, and I am so grateful for it.
Yeah. Round of applause for that, yeah. I saw in the last couple days...
I didn't roll my eyes once. That was beautiful.
Me neither.
It's funny because, I mean, this is like a riddle almost. There's three here, but there's two couples, like, how can this be type of thing? But I've noticed the way that...
We're a throuple. Artistically.
Maybe you could talk about the way that even the two sets of couples, how you work as a couple, creative... I mean, actually, I guess you often don't like to collaborate on projects, but you'll...
Just on
babies.
babies.
Maybe speak to that.
Yeah, we tried to collaborate. Dan and I tried to collaborate once, and that collaboration lasted about 30 minutes. Once we got to the, we started coming up with a story. We're like, okay, yeah, that could be cool. That could be cool. And as soon as we got into the visual discussion of like what it might look like, you know, he was going all maximalist with it, and of course, like I was like, no, it needs to be really simple. Like, no, this is not going to work. Let's just stop right here.
But they have been collaborating on a baby, and they're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any advice that you would give to your younger self now, or even 3 years ago you, or the last thing you're working? Because a lot's changed. I mean, it seems like exponentially changed. So even the you before the last big projects, what would you tell that version of you to be ready for? Any sort of advice?
Obviously, like, things worked out pretty well. Like, I'm like, I would be nervous to mess with my past, you know? Because I like this.
I should have instituted the rules that whatever you tell you doesn't prevent you from having done the thing that...
Yeah,
this is a really stupidly worded question.
No, it's not.
Just what advice would you give to young people? They're the most generic.
No, I like it. No, but in some ways that is my advice. It's like, you know, it's a journey. You know, like it's fine. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna like look back at yourself in your 20s and be like a little embarrassed by parts of it. And I think it took me a while to change my value system away from like grind culture, like work as hard as possible. I think the world needs like patient calmness, you know, more than I ever thought in my 20s, you know, and in the process of making the movie and in the finished product of the movie. So like part of me would go back and say like, chill out, Daniel. It's okay, chill out a little.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing I ever did with my work that like now I see that that was a big detriment was kind of like keeping it private. You know, like if I could make a film and I would like hide it away or like only submit to like a few film festivals and whatever because I wanted to do that whole thing right. But ultimately, I think if I had just put everything out there, like put it up on the internet, shown everyone, don't hide it away. Like I think that would be my biggest advice because you're always going to be your worst critic and your worst enemy on things, and the best thing you can do is, especially if you're making work, like please show it to people so they can see it because it will probably resonate with someone more than you realize.
Probably two things. Find a compatible therapist. I think that's like good advice for young artists. Compatible can also mean affordable. I know it's a cost, not a cost-effective thing sometimes, or feels
and maybe
like
your version of therapy is pretty unique. You know?
Yeah, I do think it's important, just not only for your art, but for your family and friends and everyone around you. Become a better person. And then the other thing is, I think when I was really young, I was a little too afraid to accept the fact that art is important, if that makes sense. I have a very self-deprecating streak within me, and so early on when I started to, we started working as directors, I was like, this is so indulgent, to what a frivolous thing to be chasing after self-expression. There's so many other things we could be doing in the world. But the longer I've been doing it and the more I've been seeing the impact of our work, I'm realizing that this is maybe some of the most important stuff to be done right now in this moment. A lot of people are saying that what we are having is it's not really like a crisis of economics or a crisis of misinformation or crisis of blah, blah, blah. Those are all true, but really deep down, we are in the middle of a crisis of spirituality and a crisis of meaning. And we do not know how to process all of this noise and chaos and, all the essays and all of the, speeches that we can, think of. We'll never be able to fully process all that stuff on a spiritual level in the way that art can. And so I really want to empower people to believe that what they're doing is so important, maybe the most important thing they could be doing. If you have the talent for art, the world needs it right now. And think bigger, think about the world. You have the internet, you have access to, we never thought that our work would ever hit people in Hawaii or Japan or Africa, and it is happening, and it's possible. And so if you are like me, someone who thought that art was silly or that art, what I had to say was silly, throw that away and really just think big and grow into this beautiful imagination of what you could do for the world. So that's something I would want to hear for myself, I think.
I'm curious. I kind of want to just dip our toe into the conversation of AI, but I know that we're gonna dip in and it'll get crazy. But a lot of artists.
AI? What does that stand for?
It's called artificial intelligence. I don't know if you've heard of it. Many artists are very afraid, and rightly so. Some artists who are working on murals here actually use some AI to help generate the sketches that would become the thing, and so it's quite a divide between people who are open to trying it and then people who are deathly afraid of it or against it. And I'm just wondering how, for things like stop motion, they might not even realize all the work that goes into that type of animation, and when you tell them, I think it's even more impressive. But as AI can do those things, not just as one example, but how do you in the near future see it affecting the work you make, and then maybe in the distant future?
If Dan and I start talking, we might not stop.
I've thought a bit about AI and how it will affect all of our lives, but I honestly have not thought yet about how it might affect my specific art form in stop motion, which is why it gave me pause. Because, part of it is kind of exciting to me just because stop motion and I mean all animation really takes so much time that the idea of having some way, I mean, it's not going to emulate or replicate what a human can do, but something that can speed up the process and allow us to tell stories and get whatever important messages we have to say out faster is actually pretty interesting and could be very promising. I mean, there's obviously all the concerns about people's human work that they put up on the internet, you know, getting stolen from and taken from, and like how do we regulate that? And that's all a can of worms. But yeah,
the funny thing about stop motion is it should have gone extinct a while ago.
I know.
When you think about it,
I know.
And so I think it's actually safe
it
from
might
AI.
be safer. It might be such a dinosaur that it's just not
exactly
gonna.
the fact that people still want it, even though CGI is able to replicate it in a way that like they can even make it imperfect or add the thumbprints. They can do all those things, and there have been projects that have basically to a T imitated stop motion, and yet people are still doing it.
I mean, it's one of the best things I think personally about stop motion as a medium, and why that pendulum keeps swinging back from CG to stop motion is once people get, you know, too tired of CG and the machine creating it, they just really yearn for that human tactile quality. And you're always going to get some level of that in stop motion. You can't escape it. You can't escape the fingerprints and the dust and the reality of it that actually exists somewhere and was filmed by someone. So yeah, maybe it will never die because it is one of the most human forms of animation, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, I've been thinking about this so much, maybe a little too much, but I was at a concert last week. We went and saw Caroline Polachek. She's amazing live, and I've been thinking about AI and art, and I realized that more and more art is going to be about less and less about the final product and more about process, which is something that very personal to me because growing up, or even just like early on in my career, everything was about the final product. I'm like, I want to get there. I want it to be perfect. I want to be. I don't care about how it's done. Let's just get there. Whereas Scheinert is really much about process. He's a process guy, and if the final product isn't that good, he doesn't care that much. You know, he's like, oh, that was fun. Let's do the next one. And I've learned so much working with him through that, and now that AI is kind of accelerating this conversation for everyone, I do think that what you realize it's like in math class when now that we have graphing calculators, all the math teachers are like show your work so you know your steps or whatever, which is kind of frustrating as a student, but as an adult you realize, oh, that is the only way that process gave me something. Otherwise that process is empty. And I think the same thing will be true for art. And instead of saying show your work, I would say, or show your process, I would say hold your process. You know, hold your work, because that's the one thing you're going to get out of it now. If the final product is always going to be perfect, or the final product is so easy, process and the things that you struggled with and the things that you learned are the only thing we have. So whether that's literally a live performance, you're watching music being processed right before your eyes, and that's a beautiful thing to be present for. Or if it's stop motion and you're literally just moving a limb, you know, every couple seconds for 5 hours at a time, there's something in that will be infinitely more fulfilling and infinitely more valuable to you when you look back on it than the final product. If AI makes everything possible and easy and instant.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I think that's even backed up by, like, even before AI came into the conversation, so many artists I've talked to, like fellow animators and illustrators, like all have told me the videos they have that get the most views are the behind the scenes or the process videos. Like the videos where they're actually teaching you how to do the thing instead of just watching the thing, I mean, and even in my own work, I definitely enjoy the process more than the final. Because once you get to the final product, you're over it, you're exhausted, you have too many feelings about it. Other people can enjoy it, but for me, making work the process is the enjoyable part.
And then I'll take my opportunity to say that Dan loves AI. He's just talks to ChatGPT so much lately, and like used Midjourney a ton on this like photo shoot we did earlier this year, and really helped us brainstorm cool things. And I think it's a terrifying nightmare, bad for the world, and could destroy civilization as we know it, and that everyone should call
To
your
be fair,
legislators.
I believe those things too.
He
Yes.
believes it too.
Yeah.
You should talk to your legislators. You should talk to Google, Facebook, anyone with a think tank, and say, be careful with this stuff, because we're talking about speed and efficiency, which we all kind of fetishize as a culture, and it's like, oh, we could speed this up or that up, but we're talking about it on a scale that's like terrifying. Like, once it can do what a human can do, it can automate away a shocking amount of our jobs. Like, it can imitate any image, any phone call, any text imaginable, and suddenly, like, consensus truth, our ability to communicate, our economy as we know it. We're gonna cheer you up in a second, but it's like, it's so much bigger than like, oh, that looks a lot like Wes Anderson. Like, that's not what is scary about this to me. What's scary about it is like the technology is like nuclear power level of technology that's just being kind of crowdsourced and sent, and 100 million people are just tinkering with it, and that's, you know, dangerous when our real goal shouldn't be speed and efficiency. It should be like a healthy, happy world where people can feel fulfilled and feed each other and whatnot, you know?
One of the applause break. One of the things I find sad, or like it's just, I'm still figuring out how I feel about it, is like the personalization of the internet. Actually, no, I don't have to figure out how I feel about it. I don't like it. I feel like it's sad, and I long for a shared experience. And I think people here have probably seen the movie Inside Out, and there was a scene where some people in the world actually saw the kids playing soccer, and other people saw the kids playing ice hockey, and they started to have different versions of movies for different, and that's not the first time it's happened, but the idea that Amazon Prime as a streaming platform knows your buying habits and could insert other scenes into films based on things it knows you buy. So I see butt stuff in a movie, someone else sees someone having a Starbucks or whatever it is. It's like, it's obviously gross that that's what's going to happen. Not necessarily the butt stuff's gross, but the idea that they're inserting all this advertising. But beyond that, I find it sad that just like the four of us could watch something and we actually haven't seen the same thing, and that's depressing to me. I am worried about what that's like to just feel isolated from. We all went to watch a movie, and if we all put on these little goggles and we saw slightly different versions based on the things I'm most likely to buy or whatever, that's really sad. And I feel like I miss kind of, we all went to watch a movie and we all saw the same thing. We could all talk about what we liked and didn't like. And it's actually going to get hard to see things or taste things at a restaurant or experience things that are a 1 out of 10. You're going to see a lot of 6 out of 10 because it appeals to everybody and it's a whatever, and you'd actually have to go out of your way to have a bad experience, which is a weird thought. So maybe one way to stand out as an artist is to start making really ugly. I'm actually already seeing this as a trend actually on Instagram, where really good photographers are posting kind of bad photos to be like the young kids posting these photo dumps, and it's like an anti-aesthetic. And I don't know if you guys have thoughts about like an anti-style or sort of like what AI is pushing people do to just feel human still, or a reaction to that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening in film as well, that, or it probably already is, that like slick aesthetics are getting easier and easier to pull off, and so then they're kind of like, that means the effect is getting less effective, and a hidden camera of something unquestionably real is something that like people react to stronger than like, you know, because something that looks more classically beautiful.
It feels like a natural progression, though, of art, just historically. You know, we're sort of, like I was talking about, kind of this pendulum that swings between, okay, you know, stop motion being huge, like in the 80s, and, you know, it's a little rough around the edges, but that was the technology that was available, and then things got really slick again when CG came into the picture, and then things, in my opinion, kind of swung back, or at least stop motion kind of rose to that same level where people wanted that tactility again, and then maybe we went back to some slick motion graphics, and I just kind of feel like it's naturally going to go back and forth between what people want. just it's like trends, you know.
Right, you guys are talking about the anti-style part of his question, but the personalization and the death of monoculture and the atomization of mass media is something I think a lot about, because in some ways, when you break down all the different things that art does for us, I think one underlying thing that I think is the most important is it's meant to unify, and it's meant to make you feel connected to another person for a moment. You know, when you read someone's poem from the 1800s, for a moment you're literally connected to a human that you have never met and never will meet. And that can be really beautiful, but when you can find the magical way of unifying a lot of people together all at once, which I think is it's something Joseph Campbell talks about. In one of his last interviews, he talks about the problem with modern myth is it's almost impossible to find a myth for our community, because every community has a myth emerge from it. Our community right now is a global one, and so it's almost impossible for us to see what that myth looks like, and it's impossible for us to, as storytellers and artists, to pull that out and reflect it back to us, which is again goes back to this crisis of meaning and crisis of spirituality. And so I think when art is pushed towards this sort of commodified, personalized thing, that's actually just entertainment, which there's nothing wrong with entertainment, but when that's all you get, there's a deep hole, and there's a deep pit that will be missing from the collective and from the individual. And so I do think, as far as pendulum swings go, you know, if all of commercial art is swinging us towards personalized, algorithmized, optimized, isolating experiences, I think true artists really, the most punk thing to do is try to create something that will just pull together as many people as possible and make us feel again that we are all one human population on a planet together. And that is, I think that's what we need, and that, again, I think that's the most punk thing we could do right now, which is very funny to think of. And that was very much the goal of Everything Everywhere. While writing that movie, I read Joseph Campbell's his book Power of Myth, and he talks about how there is no global myth, and that is why we're seeing decay and trust decay, and that's why we're seeing culture decay. And you know, stupidly I was like, okay, I think maybe I can fix this problem. Of course it's impossible, but again, I love chasing impossible dreams, knowing that I will fail, hoping that even if I fail, I'll land somewhere close or somewhere further than I would have if I hadn't strived for that impossibly optimistic thing. You know.
And like, I feel like you could hear that spiel and think that Dan's talking about like making the most populist thing possible and having a panel, you know, discuss which choices, you know, will sell the most Marvel toys, and I didn't read this book, you know, so maybe I don't have as profound of a thought, but like it was inspiring and exciting to see it work the kind of old axiom that like through the extremely specific and personal you can reach something universal, and that like we leaned so hard into a specific Chinese American family and had like specific choices of like how they speak and where they live and what they do, and that didn't alienate the audience, you know, like that just made them believe the family, and that as long as the movie had something to say that resonated with you, it didn't matter to the audience, you know, if their mom looked like that, you know, which was really inspiring and exciting to see that happen, you know.
Dan, you mentioned impossible dreams, and I'm wondering if because all three of you worked on projects now that were nominated and won many awards, if you have now reimagined a new set of impossible dreams, or has your definition of success changed? Like, what does success mean for each of you now?
Just to be upfront, like the Oscars was never a part of the impossible dream. It was never like that stuff was never anything we shot for. But
now we want to ride the wave as long as we
more
can.
Oscars
We're
every
fucking
single
hooked
year.
on it, man.
You can't handle it. No thanks.
Never again. No, it was an amazing experience, but I think our goal is still very much the same, which is to to find that fulfillment. And at this scale and at this level and at this responsibility, I think it requires us to push even further into this pocket of what does the world need. And I think that is still, to me, the impossible dream, is to continue to create art that will do, again, the push against every single capitalist incentive and every single, exactly, to create art that cannot exist in this world, but needs to exist in this world. And whatever that means, or whatever shape or form that takes, is very exciting to me. And it's also incredibly stressful. It's very hard. It's like every single thing that you take for granted has to be shaken up or turned around or examined. And so, Everything Everywhere took us like 6 years to make. It took us so long to make because the whole time we were just pushing against what we thought we were supposed to do. I don't know. It was also the most fulfilling thing we ever did. So maybe our next movie will take 6 years. I don't know, but it will still be the impossible dream to be fulfilled through our work, and to give back all the wonderful, beautiful fortune that we've been given back to the world in a way that makes sense to us. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I can say it any better than that. Yeah, it's just, it's definitely an intense pressure. Like, I just finished up the I Am Groot project, and I'm currently, I don't have anything lined up, so I'm like, oh God, I could do anything, which is terrifying. And you want to make the right choice, and you want to, if you have any type of microphone, you want to say something important into it. So I feel that pressure, and with all the issues in the world, you sort of like want to get it out as quickly as possible as well. So, all I can say is like it's a bit stressful, but you just have to be writing, thinking, always working, always sketching, and also taking care of yourself, so you don't fall apart, and taking care of your family, which is important.
I also think one of the things that you do really well that I don't do well is so much of the progressive change isn't necessarily in your art, or that's not the priority of the art at first, but it is in your life. I think our household is so much greener and so much more closed-looped, economics and zero waste and all these things because of the work that you put into it. And so I think that's the other thing that I do encourage everyone to think about, is the way, like, the ways that small personal decisions done by a lot of people can slowly build into an avalanche. And I think Kirsten is someone who lives by that, and I do not know how to do it without her. So
thanks. I mean, the personal responsibility is important, but you're just one person doing it. So I think like getting that word out. To be more like clear, I think my priority in the messages I want to put out are about sustainability and what's happening with climate change in our environment, and trying to get stories out about that don't be over the head and make people glaze over, telling these really important stories and getting these messages out, these things that I practice in my own life that I feel really strongly about, but just trying to figure out a way to package that in something that is really fun, that is actually fun media to digest and to enjoy. And it's a challenge, but it's a challenge I'm currently working on. Yeah.
Just thinking about like process and those tiny things, I find comfort in the thought that like this is my art. It's not just the next movie. Like the movie I made this morning at the school is called Money Murder, and it has about like 6 shots, and like that is my art, and it kind of takes some pressure off of just like one next big thing, to just be like, our lives are filled with these little choices and these little moments where we get to kind of chew on ideas or express ourselves. Yeah.
I know Kier mentioned she doesn't currently have something lined up. I'm sure that will change very soon, but could the two of you give a little sneak peek, like hint, or talk a little bit about what might be next for the two of you?
Yeah, you want us to pitch our movie scene by scene?
Go for it. See what
Okay, so we're thinking, it starts. Dan, I keep complaining that we're spread too thin. So like we've been really deep into like worrying about AI and whether or not that should be our priority. We have a whole feature film script that's bigger and more complicated than Everything Everywhere that we've been trying to write. But then during the edit, we outlined a different movie that was simple, but now we don't know if we should make it right now. And then this is such a boring answer, just to list off vague shit. But yeah, but we have like TV projects and movie projects, and the main thing we want to do is sit down and write the next feature, and for it to be something that kind of like urgently chews on these themes that Dan's been talking about, you know, something that like can speak to like young people today looking at the future they face, you know. And it might take 6 years, just like he said, because it's so complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking about it, but that's definitely my priority is like, how do I share this thing that I'm so passionate about, you know, and being more low waste, zero waste, you know, all the issues about sustainability and like what can we all do collectively? Because like you were saying, it's like it's not enough for one person to do it. I mean, it's great for one person to do it, and it is a nice way to spread it, where like, you know, you have a friend and you tell another friend, and actually things do spread pretty nicely that way. But I feel like if I can make something that's probably going to be character based, that I'm still figuring out. I have a few ideas. It might be a feature. Who knows? I don't know. This is he really wants me to write a movie, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can handle. I'm a shorts person.
I'm so excited. If it's 90 seconds, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
If it's 90 minutes, I'll also be happy.
Yeah, and TBD. You know, you'll see in the next few years.
We have a lot of other projects outside of the actual act of making things within the film industry. I think we are trying to, especially Daniel Scheinert and John Wong, our producer, are trying to really help spearhead within our industry, just as from a creator's perspective, how can we make our industry more sustainable, more aligned with the Paris Climate Agreement? How can we create an industry-wide push to create a more cohesive plan? This just makes me think of just one last thing I want to pitch to you guys, just because I have this platform. I want you guys to chew on this, even if you think it's stupid.
Do you want to stand up?
Yes. 400 years ago, when our country, I've been thinking a lot about the fact that, a lot of people are really stuck in between these two places when it comes to action, specifically climate action. There's a million other things, but I'll just take climate for an example. On the one hand, we have this pressure, which is we must do things, we must recycle, or recycling is kind of bullshit. We gotta reduce, because we've learned that recycling doesn't work anymore. We have to really think about how to bike more and build better systems, whatever. So we have this pressure, and on the other side, there's this narrative that is true, which is, corporates have been pushing on us this idea of personal responsibility to basically absolve themselves of doing anything. So as long as we're fighting amongst ourselves, the corporations get to do whatever they want, build whatever systems, whatever toxic and destructive systems that will give them the most profit. And something I've been realizing is like, oh shoot, it's so hard to think about the world. People always say, think globally, act locally. Think globally, act locally. And that's killing us, honestly, because I have so much anxiety when I think globally. And really what we have to be doing in some ways is mourn globally, thrive locally. Say goodbye to the world just for your own peace of mind, and just look around you and say, how can I make the people around me thrive? How can I make myself thrive? And we're trying to do that within our own industry. And what I offer to you all is the fact that you all have agency and power within your life, even if it doesn't feel like it, even if it's just in your household, even if it's just in your classroom as a student, or if you run a Fortune 500 company, you have a lot of power. But everyone has some sort of power, and just think about what power you have. And what opportunity you've been given, and kind of ignore that weird bullshit about, personal individual responsibility versus whatever, and really just think about this moment as a time for you to practice. Because one day the systems will change, and we will have to be reducing, we will have to be biking, we will have to be doing all this stuff, and be really gracious on yourself. Don't be forgiving. Don't be like the vegan who gets mad at everyone else who for not being vegan. But try your best. Do whatever you can to practice for when the systems do change. And just doing that, all collectively practicing slowly with a lot of grace and patience for our fellow whatever, I do think that can do a lot, and it's better than what we're doing right now, which is literally nothing, and that's not everyone. There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of hard work, but I think that needs to hit a tipping point.
Even the sticklers of there's zero waste, but that feels really binary and really scary. It's like, zero waste is pretty difficult to do in a lot of circumstances.
It's a very privileged thing to be able to do.
Yeah,
it's really expensive.
Instead, it's low waste, lower waste. Just adopt a few of these practices. Bring your reusable water bottle instead of buying plastic water bottles. Simple things like that. Start small.
Don't get mad at yourself when you forget your water bottle.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
Yeah. Be kind. Be patient with
yourself. But we're practicing for the future that we want to have, which is a future in which we are not destroying our planet. So let's practice together. That's something that I've learned a lot from Kirsten and from Daniel and from the people around me. So let's mourn globally and really thrive locally. That's something I really want, a dream for myself, for my future project.
I think that's actually a great. I think at time-wise, I do want to make sure there's time for some Q&A, and with that one by really quickly. First of all, can we have a big round of applause for the three of them? I'm not sure time-wise how many we could do, but maybe if you do have a burning question, you could raise your hand, and then they could quickly point to the first three they see, and I'm gonna try and run out to them, so you could just be like, this person, and I'll do it. I don't know how far I can walk with this thing, but
all right.
If you point someone out,
run down the aisle, and there's a guy with a button-up shirt, and he's got hair. Yep. Not like me.
Hello, my name is also Daniel.
I knew it.
I have a burning question. I bought your book that you edited for A24, where it was the collection of the multiverse and all the sort of stuff in between. And you had an early draft of your script for Everything All at Once when it was a man, and it opens in a town where I'm from, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. It's a very specific town. Why that town? I have to know.
Wow.
He was born there.
I was born in King of Prussia, so I just put it in there. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I grew up in that mall, that massive, terrifying mall. Yeah.
Cool. Front row here. Yeah. If you just shout, I'll repeat your question too. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Aloha, I'm Cards. I hope you're enjoying your stay here in Hawaii. I'm graduating this Friday with my associates, so I'm asking for your wisdomly advice on how to prepare for the future or college advice or whatever.
Yeah, you're graduating high school.
Associate.
Associate's degree. Rock and roll. Cool. Yeah, everything he said a second ago. Yeah, I am so lucky that I found lovely friends in my life, and I think that's a lot of times my advice, is just find people that inspire you and spend time with them, cling to them. Don't just chase other people's definition of success, etc. Or don't force yourself into weird little lonely cycles because apparently that's what you're supposed to do is go to this place or do that thing. That the most valuable thing I got out of college was not my classwork, it was my classmates. And you can find your people at the cheapest school, the most expensive school, or they might just be here, but keep your eyes open for that.
I think we can do another person.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Yeah, 2 hands. Yeah, you got 2 hands up and you're excited.
Bro, I swear to God, I've been waiting all day to ask this fucking question. Okay, hi. So I noticed that you guys worked with Sun Lux on the soundtrack for the movie, and I was looking through their music on Spotify, and I saw that one of the songs came out years before the movie did, but it was the same song. I think it was Your Day Will Come. So how did you guys decide what to do with the music? Did you build the soundtrack based off of that song?
Yeah. Could y'all hear in the back? Her question was about us working with the band Sun Lux, who scored Everything Everywhere. Rafiq, Ian, and Ryan are incredible musicians, each in their own right. And part of what appealed to us about working with them was that we found their solo records as well as their records together, and they all had kind of interesting textures, and we were like, oh, like they could score our multiverse. They were incredibly collaborative, and they were so kind. They gave us all their music that they'd ever released as instrumentals, and we cut the movie using their music mostly. A lot of times, like
As temp first, yeah.
yeah, a lot of times like a movie has temp, and you put in another movie's music, and then later try to replace it, and it can be a really confusing, stressful part of the process. So for a while we were thinking we were going to license a lot of their pre-existing songs, but they ended up replacing almost all of it, creating almost 2 hours of original music. But we licensed a couple of their songs and paid them a little extra for that. And,
or sometimes they just rework the song, because I don't think it's the exact same version on the album, right? We used it in the temp edit, and then they just retooled it a little bit, made it more specific to the movie, but still allowed the melody to be what it was in their original album. And it's something that they've done in the past. There's a specific melody that they've put in every single album that they've ever released, and so to them it felt very natural to just have that through line, and we were like very excited to have that melody is also in our soundtrack too, hidden somewhere, but still it's like to have our body of work be intertwined with theirs now in that moment is very exciting. But yeah, it's a gorgeous song. We had to keep it in the movie.
I did have a quick question myself, actually. A little birdie told me about someone that you might have wanted in the film that didn't work, and I wonder if you could share anything about possibly a different cast person. Can I say that?
Yeah.
It was Jackie Chan?
Yeah, we can talk about Jackie.
Okay.
You guys heard of this guy, Jackie Chan? He made these kung fu movies that we grew up on. The first draft of the movie was, a lot of times we write with like our childhood heroes in mind. So Swiss Army Man, we started writing it with Jack Black in mind, because like I was just so obsessed, as a kid.
And he's a great singer. Yeah.
Yeah, a great singer. So we started writing with Jackie and Michelle in mind. We were like, what if it was Michelle Yeoh and Jackie Chan? How cool would that be? Like, we got to meet him. We thought they told us that he had watched our movie and read our script, and then we flew to China, sat down with him, and found out that he had not read the script, had not seen any of our movies, and had no idea who we were. And he had like 15 minutes. And he couldn't have been sweeter, and also seemed very confused by us and our movie. And he's like a global superstar worth so much money with like compounds, and he didn't his team didn't even understand what an indie movie is. So it was a bad fit. Not because he was mean, but just because like we were like, oh, this isn't creatively right. And then we talked about like who else, and we just became enamored. As soon as we were like, what if we just focus on Michelle's character and we start coming with more ideas for her character and switching things around, the script became a lot better, and we both started talking about our moms, and so the Jackie version is like a completely different movie.
And really bad, honestly. It was a bad script, yeah.
Yeah, but there was like a father-daughter dance. There was a wedding. It was weird. But we got to meet one of our childhood heroes, and he watched Turn Down for What,
And then
in front of us. It's true.
But then it worked out for the best, I think.
Yeah, so it was like a creative miracle, like a lot of times we just collaborate with the universe, is what we call it, and we're just like, things just might not work out. We never we never chase an actor that aggressively, because we want them to want to do it. So we just try to put our best foot forward, and if they say no, we're like, great, yeah, I don't want you to begrudgingly do it, And then Michelle was the complete opposite. We met her, and it was just so many stars aligned. She was so funny. She got it, and fit the character and understood what we were going for, and it was just like immediately like, oh, I could make a movie with you. This is so exciting. Yeah.
I'm not sure how we are for time. I think we can do one. If you want to be the person that gives the final question of the entire evening, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Okay. Kirsten picked 2 hands, button-up shirt.
He
Yeah.
said 2 hands.
Yeah.
He seems really enthusiastic.
Yeah. You're
about it.
shaking your head. Yeah. You.
Wait, that guy's got 3.
Oh.
Whoa, 3 hands guy.
No, we're gonna.
Yeah.
we're
He's walking in the middle. Thank you. Yeah.
This better be good.
How did you tell a woman's story so beautifully? 2 gentlemen. I'm struggling with a play about the life of 2 women, and I know what the play is. I know how I want to write it. I'm having a hard time putting it down in words, knowing that there is that dynamic. And you guys did it beautifully. So, just asking for some advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a cool question.
Great question.
So, people in the back, the question was, how did we write a movie about 2 women? And he said that we did it well, and that he's trying to write something as well. And yeah.
I mean,
We just wrote down things that my partner Steph said, and things that his mom said in a journal.
I mean, the funny thing is, to piggyback on the last question, it was completely unintentional. We weren't setting out to write a movie about women. We were just, and I think again, it's just like you collaborate with the universe and you just kind of go with the flow. And honestly, I just think we have a lot of strong women in our life, which is a huge thing to lean on. That's really important. Both of our mothers were huge inspirations for the film, and both of our mothers were very much the strongest voices in our families growing up. But then beyond that, like, a lot of credit goes to the act of working with incredible actresses in a very open, creative relationship where if anything felt wrong, they could tell us, and we would talk about it. And just knowing that they always say you write your movie 3 times, once with the script, once on set, and once in the edit, and knowing that you have a couple more chances to rewrite and be really humble and open to the fact that there are people around you who are going to know more than you about certain things, or who have a better perspective on things than you. And we were really lucky to have Steph Shue and Michelle Yeoh be those people for us and keep us honest and create these really beautiful 3-dimensional characters in a way that we know we would never be able to do on our own. So I don't know. It's really tricky, and we weren't sure if we were going to get it right. But the fact that you were nervous about it is a good sign, I think, because that means you're going to be open and humble and searching. And I think that is not only good for the characters, but just for all art in general, to be open and hungry and searching. Yeah.
And I think if you're the type of person that is open to sharing your work at an early stage, have some women in your life read it and see what they think, you know?
And read some books by women and watch movies by women, and yeah, like that. It is scary, like you don't want to get it wrong. I'm a white man. It was doubly scary, and we leaned very hard on people and their stories and their lives, and they were generous enough to talk with us about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Can we get one last big round of applause for these 3 talented people? And give yourself a round of applause. Thank you all for coming. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to say, but thank you all for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here.